Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our second to last webinar of the school year, talking about National Board Certification. This webinar is an informational virtual discussion about the process of National Board Certification, and it's really intended for teachers who are just getting started on their journey and are just beginning to learn more about it so that they, in hopes of doing it in the near future. If you've already started the process, you're certainly welcome to stay, but you might find that you know a lot of the things we're going to be sharing about today. Here we go. My name is Nikki Bradenberg, and I'm a certified K-8 teacher. When I certified about just a few years ago in early childhood and middle childhood English language arts and literacy. And at the time I was teaching kindergarten and first grade at a school just outside of Bozeman. And right now I'm working for Montana PBS in the educational services, acting as a technology coach for teachers in rural schools. With me today is my colleague, Kim Stout. And Kim, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Kim Stout, and I certified in exactly the same discipline as Nikki did. So we're both literacy endorsed National Certified Board Certified Teachers, and we actually both got certified the same year in 2013. Mm-hmm. I currently work as the president of the Helena Education Association for another few months, and then I'll be going back to fourth grade classroom teaching. Yeah, so I'm excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Fourth grade. I didn't know that news. That's exciting.
Yeah. I've known for a few weeks, but I haven't told anyone.
Cool. So if you'd like to follow along with the slides of this that we'll be talking about today, you can see we've got a URL here, bit.ly/NBC Webinar. And this is just the slide deck we use. We try to refrain from reading all of these slides to you. So if you wanted to go back after this webinar and look through those slides or use any of the links with our contact information, all of that is there for you. We are recording this webinar as well, and we try to put it on the MFPE website within a few days, depending on how fast I can get it edited, of having the webinar. So if you wanted to go back and listen to any part of it again for your own memory, you can certainly do that as well. And real quick, Marco, would you be able to send Christy Gaines the link to this webinar? She's sending me a message that she'd like to get on, but she doesn't have the link.
Sure, I will do that.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on forward here. So I can't remember, Kim, do you do this one or do I?
This is me.
Okay.
So what is the National Board Professional Teaching Standards? It is a professional development vehicle that is used to define and recognize accomplished teaching, because we believe that every student deserves to be taught by an accomplished teacher. It was established in 1987, as you can see on the screen. You want to click, Nikki?
Yep.
Gracias.
There we go.
It is a completely voluntary process that was developed by teachers for teachers, and it was designed to develop, retain, and recognize accomplished teaching. And it's a nationwide program that so many people are jumping on board with. And most certification areas are available K-12. There's something K-12. What are some key facts? I'm not going to read this to you just because that's not necessary, but you can just kind of pick out some of the important things that are used by schools for ongoing school systems for teacher and counselor professional development. Accomplished professionals are National Board Certified Teachers. So you can kind of read some of that. I don't want to read it all to you. A little bit of board certification by the numbers. About 112,000 teachers across the nation have achieved National Board Certification. And you can see that there are 20,000 plus now pursuing National Board Certification. In the Helena School District, we currently have around 10 that are somewhere within the process. And there are more than 50% of NBCTs teach in the high needs schools, which is great. That is true also here in Helena. Most of our NBCTs are in high needs schools. And you can see how many schools have teachers pursuing the board certification. 80% of Americans believe that teachers should have a board certification beyond just their licensure, which is kind of cool. And you can kind of see where they all are. Here in Montana, we currently have 141 National Board Certified teachers. 29 of those people are National Board Certified leaders. Like Nikki and I, we facilitate things like this to just get information out to others so people can know about the process, learn about the process, and there are other people who help you through the actual process. And there are things put in place by MFPE to help you through the process. There's a jump start, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. A home stretch idea that we're trying to get through and get going. And then there's the ambassador program, and that's what Nikki and I are promoting today, is just trying to get word out, information out, and get people involved, because we want to increase that 141 to 541 or more. This is a rough estimate of where the big concentration of the National Board Certified teachers are. In Helena, we have 14. Bozeman has 16. As you can see, there's a lot of area that have 0. We would like to change that. We'd like to get out and get some of these smaller communities, get people involved, and get more people National Board Certified, increase these numbers. So one of the big questions that I get asked quite a bit is, why would I do this? Why would I certify? You know, the biggest reason is it improves student outcomes. And they've actually done enough research now to show that kids who have teachers who are board certified achieve more. And then the impact of going through the process and achieving the goal does wonders for your professional confidence and your willingness to take for more risks and just the way you see things in your classroom. I really can mark my career as in before certification and after certification, and the marked difference it had on the way I viewed teaching and learning. And I attribute all of that to going through this process. So this quote is so true for those of us who went through it, because there was a little bit of crying in places, but there was a lot of smiles, a lot of laughter. But anything worth doing is going to be challenging, and it's going to be hard. But this is the most personalized professional development experience you can have, because your focus is 100% on your learners in their setting, where they are the moment you're going through certification. All of the work you'll put into your portfolio will be your students and you figuring out what they need and how to move them in the direction they need to go. There's no boring discussion posts or commenting on your classmates' work or anything like that. It's completely relevant for the kids in your class and what they need in that moment. Part of the advantage to becoming a National Board Certified teacher is that you do earn the recognition as someone who has done something hard and achieved it, and achieved something as a result of it. And you are recognized within the state as one of those 141 teacher leaders that really understands classroom instruction at a higher level. There are a lot of opportunities that present themselves to you as when you certify. Conferences you're invited to attend, award programs, grant programs you're invited to be a part of. It's sort of limitless just how many things you'll find yourself able to do because you have those 4 letters behind your name. Go to the next one. So this is sort of the trajectory that the National Board envisions for teachers. Kim and I take a little bit of issue with it because we do believe that you go pre-service teacher, novice teacher to professional teacher, but we do find that some teachers are teacher leaders before they are board certified. So this isn't exactly the way it happens, but for many of us who went through it,
we started to hone our leadership skills after we board certified, and there have been tremendous opportunities to act as a teacher leader within our school communities as well as within the state. I think, Kim, is that one you?
Sure.
Yep, it is. Yes.
Okay, the 5 core propositions. This is what the professional vision is all about for the accomplished teaching. There are obviously 5 of them, and this is what you will be totally focused on with every single component. It's all about the 5 core propositions, and you'll just keep coming back to them with everything that you do with the components. So they're committed to student learning. I think the next one, Nikki, is the...
Yeah, I'll just go through these if you want.
So teachers are committed to the students and their learning. And this is where the teachers recognize all the differences in their students and they adjust their practice to make sure that they are focusing on their kids and bringing them through the process and making sure that they are getting exactly what they need. Teachers understand how students develop and they learn, and then teachers know there's the subjects that they teach and how to teach those subjects. And that is where in the components that you really need to make sure that you're hanging on to evidence and being able to show that you know how to do this. And make sure that that you can show that the students are gaining what you want them to know. Teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring the student learning. The instructional goals is a huge piece because you have to have where you start, and then pick where you want to end up with your kids and show how you get there. So that is a piece where you really need to have a lot of that evidence with you and show that you can keep the kids engaged and make progress with them. Teachers think systematically about their practice. This is probably what the proposition that I got out the most out of. This is the reflective piece, where every single thing that you do every single day, you reflect on it and you figure out whether or not it was useful or not. And this is what changed my life during the whole process, is the amount of reflectivity that I happen to do. And to this day, everything I do has a reflective piece to it. It really grows so much. It makes you such a different person and such a different teacher, this proposition alone. And then members of learning communities. This is where you have your PLCs or your virtual learning communities that you work with collaboratively, and you show how you can work with the community and families and your colleagues to improve your practice in all different areas of the community, teaching community. And then this is the architecture for accomplished teaching, where every single thing that you teach goes with this architecture. You start at the bottom and you figure out who your students are and what they need. And then you set their goals and you figure out how they're going to get to those goals. And then you evaluate the learning, and then you reflect, and then you figure out what you need to do better or what you need to reteach. And then you come back, you go up to the high expectations and the new goals for the kids, and then you come back and you start again. And they directly reflect with those 5 core propositions. So it's really a thing that comes together with your architecture and the core propositions. You're going to work really closely with those things. It's about goals, setting the goals, how are you working towards those goals, and then how's it all coming together in the end.
So I think those core propositions, that if you think about it, you're doing all of that already. You don't even realize it. I think that's the thing about National Board, is you're just sort of slowing down and taking a really close look at what you're doing and writing about it in a way that starts with some description, some analysis, and then a whole lot of reflection, and just really describing what happens in your classroom, what's probably already happening in your classroom and has for years, but describing it in a way that exemplifies the way you live those core propositions. So after you understand that that's sort of like your big idea, you have to think about the certificate area that you want to pursue. And so this screen will show you all of the different certificate areas. And for some of us, there are choices, especially if you're an elementary school teacher. You can go this generalist route, or you can do what Kim and I did, which was the literacy, reading, language arts. if you're a high school science teacher, that's really probably your best option is to pursue that certificate. But you have to kind of decide what's the best certificate for you and what's the best age range for you. You can see that these age ranges are pretty broad. So for instance, the one that Kim and I got, we're talking about children ages 3 to 12. So that's a big group of kids. This is good because you want to be able to, you want to be secure that you're going to be working with that same age group for an extended period of time. When you're working on this portfolio, you don't want to switch grade levels each year unless it's with kids ages 3 to 12 or whatever your age range is. So a good thing to do before you make any decisions is to talk to your administrator and tell them your desire to do this so that maybe there's less of a chance of getting swapped to another grade level or a different school or something like that, so you can feel secure. Once you earn your certificate, you're certified for 5 years. And then in 5 years, you do what's called a maintenance. We used to say recertify, and now we say maintenance, which is a smaller version of this process, but it's just really showing what you've done since recertifying. I think it takes less time and it costs less, but you do also need to be working with the same age group and in the same area that you recertified, or at least have access to a classroom of students that same age. In my role as a technology coach, I'm not in the K-1 classroom anymore, so when it's time for me to maintain my certificate, I'll need to go borrow somebody else's classroom to do that. And hopefully there'll be someone available that wants to do that.
You can borrow my classroom.
I'll be there. Perfect. Then the other thing you need to think about is, if you're here, you probably have a bachelor's degree, but that is one of the points of eligibility. You also have to have at least 3 years of teaching under your belt and have a valid state teaching license. And then there are additional prerequisites. There will be a letter your principal will have to sign that says, yes, she teaches here, he teaches this, and this is all the information they're providing in the application is correct, and that sort of information. And then I can't remember if this is me or you, Kim.
I think it's me. So there's 4 components. The first component is an assessment of content knowledge, and it has some multiple choice questions. It's more about the pedagogy of what exactly your certificate area is. For the middle childhood generalist, I know that there's questions about science and math and reading, and I believe social studies on there. And then there were some short answer questions. This is, you go to a testing center where, you check in, check out, you can't take anything with you. And there are different testing centers across the state. I know there's one in Helena. I think there might be one in Great Falls. And then you get your score, not then, sometime in December. Usually, it says they usually say honor before December 31st. It's been the past few years a couple of weeks before that. Then there's 3 different portfolio entries, and these are all submitted electronically via the National Board website. One's on differentiated instruction, where you're talking about how you're meeting the needs of kids. One is teaching and your teaching practice in your learning environment, and then effective and reflective practitioner. And that's kind of where you just do a bragging about yourself and how are you including the community in your educational setting, and that kind of thing.
You should mention too, you don't have to do these in order.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In fact,
we're going to go through them a little bit more too. And we actually do not suggest that you do component 1 first, only because after you've done all of the work for the portfolio pieces, you've really kind of dove into your certificate area, and you kind of have a little bit more understanding of the types of things that they're asking and wanting to know, because every single piece of every one of these components is all online, all the direction, it's not hidden, it's not secret, it's all right there spelled out for you. When you go to do your writing about the component itself, the questions are there that they want you to answer. And quite honestly, when I did it, I had a hard time getting it to the correct number of pages. I wrote too much. It needs to be concise and to the point. They don't want it all fluffy.
Yeah.
So it talks about the constructed response. You have 30 minutes to do each of those, and then the selected response for your certificate area. Talked about that one. And then the differentiated instruction, where you have work that you show how the student made growth over time, and then your commentary that goes along with it. When I did mine, it was a writing piece, so I showed where my students started with their writing and then where they ended 8 weeks later, and I had the evidence to go along with that. Again, when you're doing these components, I highly suggest that you save every single little bit of evidence that you can, even if you don't think that you might use that student's work or that student's things. You literally need to keep samples of everything, because you never know when it comes down to it what you're gonna need. And it'll save yourself a lot of frustration in the end. Teaching practice and learning and did you say that we should do component? We do suggest doing the component number 1 last. And when you sign up for the testing center for that, that is in the spring after you've already submitted your components. The components are due in April, May-ish. And then you sign up to take the test at the testing center between beginning of May and the middle of June. So I hope that answered the question. Component 3, teaching. Yep, you're welcome, Lottie. Teaching practice and learning environment. This is how you engage your students. You're gonna have a video recording, and then you're gonna write some commentaries that go along with it, that you talk about your teaching practice and your interactions with students. This is not something that needs to be perfect. You don't want it to be perfect, because otherwise you have nothing to say in your commentary. If you don't make any mistakes or you don't have anything go wrong, then you can't reflect on it and say what you would do better. What I do suggest, though, is setting up that camera weeks in advance before you actually want to do the videoing. Otherwise, the kids aren't used to it and they act silly and do crazy things like fall out of their chairs. I didn't have that happen, but I know the people who have, or they just watch the video camera. Mm-hmm. So make sure you give the kids a lot of interaction with the camera itself before you click record. And then component
with the sound quality to do some video and watch it and see how it sounded. The most challenging part can be finding a piece of video footage where you can hear everybody and you can hear everything, and having a few pieces to choose from. If you have microphones available and things like that that you can use that really amplify what you're saying and what everyone else is saying, that's really helpful.
Yeah, that is really, I mean, it's not worth it if you can't hear what's going on. So, and a lot of people just video with their iPhone. Or their smartphone, so it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And then effective and reflective practitioner talks about what you do with your students, what you do with your families, community, and colleagues, and your learning communities, and how you use those to advance student growth. Now, again, these are all on the website, so you can look up and see exactly what does need to be in your video, what needs to be in your effective and reflective practitioner, what kind of things are they looking for. It can all be found on the website. Super easy to find before you look it up. The scoring happens every summer, and components scored are released by the end of the year. Board certified teachers or teaching professionals score each certificate area. So even if you're not a national board certified teacher, you can still be hired by them to score the components. And there are different places across the country that do that. I know that I just saw something recently that they were looking for people to hire to do that. You go there and you're trained to get rid of bias and everything. So it's a totally great environment that shows, the teaching professionals are really trained to make sure everything's done correctly. And National Board Assessor reliability is among the highest reported for such complex assessment. Is this me or is it still me? Timeline. So the 4 components can be taken in any order, and you have up to 3 years to submit your components, all 4 of them. you can start with just one, see how it goes, and then the next year dive in. But they must be completed during which just like what you purchase them. So if you say, okay, I'm going to do component 2 next year, then you sign up to do that. And there's, we'll show you another timeline of when everything needs to be paid and how much it is. But you sign up like in January and say, okay, I'm going to do number 2. And then you have to submit component number 2 within the window. And then it'll be scored, and you'll get your scores the following December. So you pay in January, you submit in May, score in December. So it's a long, yeah. And then you have 5 years to do the whole entire thing in case you need to retake. All right, Nikki, I think this one's yours.
Yeah. So the big question everybody wants to know is, how much does it cost? You know, why should I do it? The price has gone down since I've done it, for sure. And you don't pay all at once. And I think that's a nice feature as well. Each component is $475. And every year you have to register on the National Board website, and it costs $75 to do that. So you can see the breakdown here. The faster you do it, the less it costs, obviously, because every year you are submitting portfolio components, you do have to pay that $75 fee. However, to do it in 3 years, I think is more than doable. Kim and I both did it in 2. And so just keeping your eye on those costs. And then for family budgeting, again, you're only paying for the components that you plan to submit. You also, as an added bonus, you'll get an OPI renewal units, 60 of them, just for completing and submitting your portfolio. You can have those whether you certify or not. So you do get the renewal units for your time as well. And 60 is what you need to recertify every 5 years with the state. So you would know that you'd have that for you as well. So that's what you put into it financially. And then thanks to recent legislation and the hard work of MFPE, and Marco is one of the leaders on this initiative, the legislature has approved stipends to teachers who certify, starting at $500 from the state, to match up to $2,000, matching whatever your district is giving you. And so you'll need to go to your school district and maybe to your local union representative to find out, you know, what does your school offer your school district for candidates who achieve National Board Certification. In my case, there was nothing, because I was the first and only person who had ever gone through National Board Certification. So I had to do the extra work before I started the process of talking to the building leadership, my principal, and then going to the school board and telling them what this was. And if you want help sharing with leadership or with school board members about National Board and why it's worthwhile for you to do and why they should provide an incentive for you to pursue it, reach out to MFPE or to Kim or I, and we'd be happy to share any of these slides with you or any other information you need to make your case. I would highly recommend getting your school district on board to getting you some kind of stipend so that you can get that ultimate match from the state. Marco, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the stipend because it is relatively new. It wasn't in this last legislative session, but it was in the previous one. And so there are two stipends available, one for what are called non-high needs schools, and another one for high needs schools. And high need is defined as 40% or greater free and reduced lunch. And also if they meet the definition of basically isolated and rural. So if you're in one of those high needs schools, you could get up to $2,000. Now, when you say up to, that means the district has to have a match in as well. So let's say you're in Helena. Helena has a $2,000 local stipend for its National Board Certified teachers. If you're teaching in one of the 40% free or reduced lunch schools in Helena, then those teachers there would be eligible for an additional $2,000 from the state, because that the Helena stipend is large enough to get the entire match. So it's important to know where you're at, in what school you teach. OPI, they put out a list every spring of all of the school districts in Montana and the eligible stipend for each one of those school districts, the maximum eligible stipend. So it's just important that you're looking at that, and that your district knows that they're telling OPI that you're nationally board certified. So it is a pretty good deal. A lot of our locals have had stipends negotiated in contract for many years. And the bottom line on the state stipend is if you have a minimum of a $500 local stipend, annual local stipend, then you're eligible for maximum in either category. So you'll either get another 1,000 from the state if you're in a regular school, or up to 2,000 in the state if you're in a high needs. So good deal. And it just got funded in this last budget cycle. And there's probably 70 plus people in the pipeline right now. So when we passed the bill, we told them it was going to be expensive. We hoped it would be expensive, and it's getting more expensive, which is good news.
That is good. That's great. Great opportunity. We have a special guest on the webinar today. Christy Gaines is joining us, and she's going to talk to us about Jumpstart and why that opportunity is your next step after this webinar. Christy. Oh, we can't hear you. I think you're silent.
Sorry, thank you, Nikki. Okay. I was so muted. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to stop in today and just talk to you a little bit about a couple of opportunities that MFPE offers now to help you along this process. So the first one is Jumpstart, which is offered twice a year in the state, both during the summer. We have billing dates in June 26th through the 28th, and in Missoula, oh, thank you, nice and big, August 5th through 7th. I highly recommend Jumpstart because it will give you so many pointers about successfully entering into this process. And it's just a great way too to meet other people who are going through the process, and you will create kind of a cohort of people you can reach out to. For many of us, we're isolated enough, we don't know anyone else in our area who are working on the same components we are, or in the same certification area as we are, and to know other people around the state who might be attempting the same thing you are. It's fantastic to have that support network. So those are just a couple of the benefits of Jumpstart. There's also several modules within there that will really dive deep into ways you can be successful. We'll talk a little bit more about maybe the order that you want to tackle the components in. And so it's just a great way to really dive deep into the process, to do some pre-planning to make sure that you know what to start gathering at what point in the year. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Jumpstart's all about.
So I'll jump in here a little bit about Jumpstart. Yeah, I get several questions every season about, is Jumpstart required? And no, it's not required. We just highly recommend it. We took this model from Washington State, who have been doing it for many, many years, and it really does get candidates going in the right direction. NEA has now taken this model nationally, so there are Jumpstarts in probably 45 states. So we offer two Jumpstart sites, try to accommodate people. You can go to either one, but we highly suggest it. For MFPE members, we try to keep the cost as low as possible. It's $100. For non-members, it's $400. We have people that have been trained in Jumpstart in each one of those components, so it's very valuable. By the time you leave, when you leave Jumpstart, the idea is you are set to go to your classroom and get started that very fall. So if you have more questions about that, reach out to us. But We're doing registrations for Jumpstarts now, and so that's online at our website.
Absolutely. Christy, did you want to talk a little bit about the light support you're offering for people within the process as well?
Sure. So one of the things that's been recognized is that for those of you who are choosing to enter this process with the plan to do it over 2 or 3 years, that Jumpstart can feel a long ways away by that 2nd and 3rd year, and sometimes even just by spring of the year of that 1st year. And so we've been working, Montana had an opportunity to get in right at the ground level and do some work helping write some new modules that will be candidate support, ongoing candidate support throughout the process. They're brand new, so we're still just trying to roll them out a bit at a time, but the idea will be that they will provide ongoing support and more specifics that will help you later on in the process. So it might be issues with uploading, it might be video editing, just any of those parts and pieces that Jumpstart will feel a little bit like a fire hose. You'll learn so much, but you won't be able to retain it all. So it'll be that chance to come back to it during the process.
And then the other great thing is you're connected with other National Board Certified teachers who you can email with specific questions. I've read people's things and provided feedback, and Christy and Kim, I'm sure you have too. And just getting connected into that network of other NBCTs who can answer questions and give you support along the way.
I think that's real important, and it's a tough process to do in isolation. So whenever you can do it with a group of folks in a school or a school district, we've seen that be much more fun, number one, and I think more successful as well. And so I would encourage folks as they think about doing this to try not to do it alone, get a partner to join you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So that concludes our informational webinar this evening. Does anyone have any questions for us? I'm glad you're using the chat box to ask things as they come up, but now's your chance to hop on and ask us anything that we can clarify for you.
I would highly recommend that folks go to the National Board website. You see that address there. There's just a wealth of information there on candidacy itself, on the certificate areas. That's your first stop, your first piece of research, I think. And then once you decide, you know, kind of where you're going, if this is something for you, you've looked at the cert areas, you've decided on the cert, then I'd really get into a Jumpstart class. And then we try to tell people to hold off on their decision as to which components they take and so forth until after Jumpstart, because each half day of Jumpstart is really geared towards a particular component, and you'll have a much better opportunity to kind of decide, okay, I'm now going to do components 2 and 3 this year. Or maybe I'm in a position to do the entire process in 1 year. But you have a better decision-making process after Jumpstart. And one other thing, you mentioned the component 1. We don't recommend that folks take that first. It's unfortunate that it's labeled component 1 because it intimates that it is something that you should do first. It just works out better for folks if they wait on that. But you know, it's everybody's different, so it's your decision.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So if there aren't any other questions, please reach out if we can help you with anything. And the recording for this should be posted within the next few days, we hope. And we're excited for you to pursue National Board Certification. So thanks, everybody.
Kim and Nikki, thank you. Christy, thank you. And we have one more. So if people still have some questions, or you know folks that want to join the webinar, we have one more on June 3rd. So thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.